Okay, so in this tutorial what we are going to do is create a temperature program which is going to give us a temperature output, and it's also then going to make a decision using an if statement. Now there's a number of ways we can do this. I'm going to show you one version, and I'll probably put the link then into a different version in the description below. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with an input, and I've got here on button A. I'm going to drag that in and drop it here. Now we're going to start off using a variable. So I'm going to say make variable, and then we're going to give the variable name. So I'm going to call it temp, right, for temperature. So you can see now we've made a temperature variable. So I've got here set temp to 0 or change temp by 1. So I'm going to set the temp, and I'm going to click, drag that in and drop it. Now at the same time we've got it set it to something. Well, I don't want to set it to 0. What we need to do is set it to whatever the temperature is. So if I go back into my input option at the top and then click on temperature, drag and then drop, I'll be able then to put it inside this circle here. So at the moment we're setting this variable temp to whatever the temperature is. Now this doesn't actually display anything on the keyboard, sorry, on the Microbit. If I click on A, it's actually doing nothing. Now what I need to do is show the temperature, and if I go here basic and then show number, and instead of showing the number, what we need to do is click on variable and just drag the temp in there. This time now when I click on A, it's actually showing the temp. And if I just move the temperature down to 12, you can see now that's reflected here as well. Now the reason for doing that is simple. What I'm going to do, every time I click on button A, it'll take a reading at that exact moment in time, and then that temp is set for as long as the program is running. Now what we can also do is I can work out then if it's hot or cold. Now we can either extend this code, or if I go back to input and go to button A here and change this part here, so where it says on button A, I'm going to say to button B, and what we're going to do is you're going to use a bit of logic. So if I go to logic here, and you can see we've got if true, else, and so forth. What we're going to do is we're going to choose this, and we're going to say click, drag and drop. Now we got there if true or if false. Well, we need to change this, and the way we do it is, again, back in our logic, we basically use one of these comparisons. So if I click the top one, drag it and drop it in, we could say if the temperature is above, so we could say it's greater than, and then we can think of a number. So let's put the variable temp in, and we'll say if the temperature is greater than, let me drag that back in, if the temperature is greater than, if we think of 30, then what we ideally wanted to do is say it's warm. So let's go back here and do basic and then show string. So I can say instead of hello, I can say warm, and then essentially this is the first part of my code. Now if I press button B at the moment, it's not actually going to do anything, right? And the reason being is temp hasn't been set to anything, and we haven't actually done an else. So let's do the else now as well. So we've got show string warm. Well, the opposite of that is show string cold. So let's go back to basic, show string, and then I'm going to put here cold. So at the moment we've got if the temperature is greater than 30, it's going to say warm, else it's going to say cold. So let's try this program. If I click on A, we've set it now to 21. So if I press B now, it's going to say cold. Now if I increase this here, look, to 35, what happens when I press B? Well, it still says cold. The reason being we haven't then reset the temperature variable. So if I click on A now, which has just set the variable to 35, Now when I press B, it'll say warm. What happens if we go down to 30? Let's try and get it direct on 30. Well, when I press to set the variable, it shows me 30, and when I press button B, it still says cold. And the reason that says cold is because this operator here is saying greater than. Now if we were to change this to greater than or equal to, that would then mean, when I run my code, that essentially, if we put it up to 30 now, again, when it's on 30 and it's set to 30, it now will say warm because that there is a greater than or equal to. So that's how you would use a variable to store your temperature, and how to use a little bit of logic then to work out if it's warm or cold.